think 8 years. Maybe longer. I'm a lot longer. 11 or 12 years. It goes by fast. And I'm really enjoying everything about it. So it's just really a joy to me to see people get a good education. And I feel like this is an outstanding facility and has outstanding people. Thank you for all you do.
I'm Romy Carter. I come from a social services background and I have been on the board less than 1 month. So I'll be getting to know most of you over a period of time and know some of you and not others.
That's, man, I think I've been on the board about 6 years. I'm not even sure. I've lost count. But it's great to be on the board. We have a wonderful board and you guys support everything that we need to do for these amazing students. And my background is I was a teacher and I worked in promotion. And I even taught here at TBCC for 6 years. But, and I've also taught in Minnesota, taught in community colleges there, so. Anyway, that's it.
I'm Mary Kate Bell. I have been on the board for 11 years. I couldn't remember, but Lori recently helped me track it down for me. And it's a joy. It's a passion of mine. I'm a county commissioner, but I have been on this board for longer than I was a county commissioner. And this is it. When I came on the board, there were some people who'd been here for 20 years. So that's my goal.
My name is Marilyn Rusing. I've been on the board also for less than a month. But I've been on the foundation board since I think 22. Yeah, so I know some of you from that. I'm retired from Penn State University where I was a professor. So teaching, did a lot of teaching, but my roots are in community college. That's where I started. And I really have a passion for community colleges because they can be an entry point for many people to many things.
I won't make a comment about Penn State recent.
Oh, I care less.
Oh, I just, you
They lose the football game.
you didn't coach football there.
You know,
Well, you lost a couple. Yeah, they lost a couple.
I have a sticker on my car that says Penn State Science.
Oh. I love it. Sorry. Suzanne.
I'm Suzanne Weber and I've lived in Tillamook for a long time. I taught for 30 years. I've been on this board now since officially May, when I won the election. I have recently had a real interest in politics. And I served in the House and now in the Senate. And I have been on the education committees, both through Ways and Means and through policy making. Since I got into state politics, and I feel that our community colleges are our future, especially with the rising costs of, the big universities. This supports our local communities. It supports our local workforce. It's an integral part of our society going forward. So that's why I really am passionate about this. I'm worried about a lot of things. I've that good Catholic guilt worry thing that I carry around with me. And I do worry about, how are we going to sustain this into the future? How are we going to build it? How are we going to?
Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate this board tremendously. I think we've got a really good board and a really, really good position to be able to do the right thing to keep us moving forward. Lori, you want to start and we'll introduce just everybody around this way and then we'll end and I'll introduce Chris now at the end there.
I'm Lori Lund. I'm executive assistant to Paul and the board.
Also board wrangler, so if she emails you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm in Casey White. I'm the Dean of Academic and Career Pathways, which includes the Title III grant that we've had for 4 years and dual credit, working with the high schools.
I'm Cheryl New. I'm the executive IT director And I usually run the PowerPoints for the meeting, so that'll be where you've seen me.
And I'm usually on Zoom. The one name you see on Zoom at every board.
Kylie Papacoa, HR. And I said, give me something.
Michael Weisenflu, if you ever watched the Batman film, I'm basically TBCC utility belt.
Yeah, go away.
Yeah. I'm rolling into my 30th year of being associated with the college. Came from a history of education. My grandmother was a first grade teacher forever. And my dad was actually started his career. He was the principal at the grade school in Rockaway Beach. And then ended up working his way up, and he was a superintendent of ESD over in Eastern Oregon. So I've been associated with education for very long, and I was in private industry for a long time, and I knew I'd always end up somewhere and rewarding it up.
I'm Rhoda Hanson. I'm the Older Student Services here, and I've been here a little over 12 years now. And I like to talk about my favorite day is graduation, when we get to watch the students walk across the stage and see their families and the whole community show up to support them and acknowledge their great achievements.
Yeah, we had last graduate, to give you a sense, it's a community around here. Last year, we had about 60 to 65
Yeah.
individuals walk across the stage, but we had over 650 people in attendance.
Wow.
So
It's amazing.
it's amazing.
I'm Britta Lawrence. I'm the executive director of advancement and the foundation, and I've been here for a little over 5.5 years.
Jason?
My name is Jason Lawrence. I'm Executive Director of Facilities and Safety. We've been here about 3 years. Excited to be part of the campus expansion.
David Souls, the interim CFO, and been here about 1.5 years. Also come from an education background. Michael, both my parents taught. Dad was a high school biology and science teacher, and all my lifetime. And mom taught at a business school, at a business college. So, yeah.
I'm Erin McCarley, Director of Institutional Effectiveness. I think I get better at saying that, as I say it. I've been here 7 years, and I'm a first generation college student, like many of us around the table.
Awesome. So these folks are our leadership team, myself included. At leadership, we meet weekly in one capacity or another, and this is where we really discuss, any kind of high-level issues and concerns that we might be having at the college. In smaller groups, we might dive into operational issues and talk about how that might impact different areas. But all of these individuals are my direct reports. And I feel very fortunate, just like having the board, having all these folks with us. I know we were talking about the list of things that we had done. These people did that. Right? And I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. One of the things you've heard me talk a little bit about in sort of strategic ways, this initiative or project that we're engaged in at this college in rural guided pathways. Guided pathways, the name kind of started as a sort of way to recognize that colleges have not been, community colleges in particular, had not been doing a good job at completing students. We sort of grew out of this sort of access environment in the 60s and 70s, where the number of community college exploded across the country, in large part because of the GI Bill and retraining of military personnel. But we realized right around year 2000, something like that, I don't know why it took us that long, we weren't doing a good job at completing students. So part of that led to some work around moving away from a cafeteria style sort of approach where a student takes this, they take that, they go find themselves, more toward a guided pathway that could lead to something with the right kind of supports at the right time to help them along their way. And that started sort of this guided pathways movement. The college participated as part of the Oregon Student Success Center's work in training and providing some support for guided pathways implementation. We participated in that in, I think it was 2019. And then lately, we were chosen, we applied and were chosen to be one of 28, I think, is it, Chris? 28 colleges across the country that are participating in a rural guided pathways institute that lasts about 3 years. That really looks at how do you take best practices that we learned from this guided pathways movement, apply it specifically to rural colleges, which are very, very different. But more importantly, not just look at completion, but look at post-completion outcomes. And you heard me talk about before that our tagline about not graduating students into poverty and things like that is that we want to make sure that the pathways that we're putting students on, keeping them on, have a good return on investment for them, whether that be career, transfer, or whatever. So as part of that group, there's been some sort of rethinking around this aligning pathways toward living wage jobs. This book that I gave you all called More Essential Than Ever. It's about community colleges. And this is a story of TBCC, right? About we've talked about Suzanne, you just mentioned we're vital, we're more important. How are we going to sustain it? There's a lot of it's kind of dense reading in places because it does rely on a lot of data. It's put out by the Community College Research Center out of Columbia University. So it's dense in that regard. But I encourage you as you know, pick it up, take a look through it. This is the work that this college is engaged in. And in part, I think, is work that the Rural Guided Pathways Institute is basing a lot of the decision-making for that and support they provide us based upon some of the research that was what was presented in here. So as part of that project, we are provided with a leadership coach that helps us with leadership things and how do we get ownership in the work across campus and how do we communicate that work, but also provides us with an implementation coach of how do we move some of this work, how do we transform the college and what are some projects that are important, at least in an initial sequence for us to perform to help get us down this road of leading students into living wage jobs. I'm fortunate enough that Chris Wickstrom, Dr. Chris Wickstrom was appointed, I guess, our coach. Well, I don't know whether he likes it or not, but too bad. Chris worked with us a couple of years ago as part of a team that I asked to come out to kind of just help us with what would be our next phase here at Tillamook Bay when I came here in guided pathways and moving forward. So he's familiar with the college, is our implementation coach. He is out here on a site visit with us and just coincided to be here when we were having our retreat. So I asked him if he would be willing to just give an overview of what this work is, and at least from his lens of being a coach and part of, but formerly on the other side of the table around this project and working with TBCC. Chris is Vice President of Instruction and Student Services at Patrick Henry College in Martinsville, Virginia, which interestingly enough, you would think 2,000 miles away, but just when we were talking yesterday over the day, a lot of similarities, larger than we are, which I think 100% of community colleges probably are, but except Oregon Coast. We're 16th largest in Oregon. But a lot of similarities. So he's familiar with the struggles that we're going through. He faces them on his campus as well. Their college also participates as a college in the Rural Guided Pathways Institute. So he's a good friend and colleague and supporter and peer and helping us kind of navigate these things. His career has taken him from being a junior high math teacher to a institutional researcher to a vice president. And again, I couldn't be happier that he's along for this ride. And it's been a really helpful couple of days and will be a pretty good few years. So Chris, if you want to kind of lead us through this, that's good. We're an informal bunch here. So whatever, if there's any questions, certainly feel free to ask. Okay, you have these slides in your packet also that he's going to go through. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Paul. And yes, I'm delighted to be here. I was so happy to be able to get to them like this. That is one of the college I'm fortunate enough to work with. And it's been a awesome 2 days, jam-packed couple of days. Some really good discussion around what we're doing from a pathways perspective. As Paul talked about, this is through the National Center of Inquiry Improvements, the organization that's brought the grant forward that we were able to apply for. And and be able to get into the cohort. And there's something exciting about being able to jump in with 27 other colleges to be able to share a lot of the common challenges that we do have and all. And as Paul mentioned, you know, we can be on opposite ends of the United States and all, but what we have in common are the challenges that we have around helping our students succeed and succeed to the fullest that we have. And so the Rural Pathways Project is really designed around two components, and it's getting back to the pathways and the programmatic perspective. We'll go on to the next one. The programmatic perspective of being able to have optimized pathways that when a student jumps into this, that there's a value proposition around this, that they know that if they're going to commit their time and energy and their money to it, that they're going to get a positive outcome. A lot of times we talk about that positive outcome being wage gains and wage increases, starting a career for them, where they have options going all the way through their career. And it's not just one role that they're going into, and that's it. There's opportunity around them. But then we couple that idea from a programmatic perspective with the rural philosophy for our suburban and urban partners, community colleges in those areas. We do have some things in common, but when we get down to how we serve our students, that's where we start seeing some differences. So the idea is, how can we get and bring together rural colleges across the United States so that we can en masse go through and address some of the challenges that we have with students within the rural landscape. And that's program offerings. So sometimes that we have those issues. We have distances students have to drive to get to class, and transportation issues and things like that are not necessarily common in suburban or urban partners, but within the rural landscape, and how we go through and address those. So the economic mobility, when we're looking at that, and we start with the employee base for Tillamook County. We have over 10,000 folks who are employed, currently working with a median wage of $48,800. The importance of that median wage, when we're talking about the pathways approach, and if we're looking at economic mobility, the ability for someone to progress through their career and earn more, all right? That median wage kind of gives us that benchmark to look off of, so that when we start looking at our programs, we can analyze, all right, where are we at with the program earnings relative to the median salary for our region? Because what we want to do is we want to be able to bring people in. We want to serve our students in a way that's going to give them the best opportunity to make that median salary or higher and progress. And so that's where a lot of the conversations come from, as to how we're building these things out and how we're connecting to our employers so that we can optimize the wage increases for our students. Lastly, we have about 39% of that workforce that's making at or above 48,800. So again, what we're looking at are ways that we can incorporate programming in that gives our students the best opportunity to succeed. But we do this within the rural context. And one of the challenges, one of the largest challenges we have, is what we call the live-in, work-in model. So we got a couple of options here. Optimally, what we want to do is we want to be able to provide programming. We want to be able to incentivize as a community college. Our mission work is to be able to provide people the opportunity to live in our service region, but also be able to work in our service region. It has a positive community impact. They live here and work here, but there's also a tax base, a financial component as well when they live in and work in. So again, from the programming perspective, we want to be able to provide those things that incentivize, and again, getting back to the value add, the value proposition itself, so that people say, I can go to Tillamook Bay Community College, I can attend this program, I can complete this program, and I can live in this community and serve this community for my career. And that's the optimal goal that we want. Well, we work in this quadrant style here with the rural pathways and the challenges of, okay, well, if we can't live in, work in, can we at least get you to live in, maybe work out? If we can't get that and work in, or we can do the opposite there. Maybe you live out and work in. But what we don't want is, we don't want to have situations where people are leaving, all right, to where we have the out migration, all right, issue of what we have. And again, it goes back to the purpose of the mission of the community college, being able to provide that programming to keep students here. Next, please. So our Pathways Connection, again, go back to the value add. We had some discussion yesterday, a really good discussion around how we optimize programs from a career opportunity. And then also, what are we doing from a promotion of quality of life in our service region, right? That community impact that we talked about. So this is a 3-year project that NCII is putting on, the Rural Guided Pathways work that we're doing. So as we go through this work, and we're about a half year into it, these are a lot of the conversations that we center a lot of the information around and discussion around. So we've asked all the colleges to identify 3 priorities that they want to work on across these 3 years. And so TBCC has identified 3 priorities. First one is curricular alignment. And so when we're talking about curricular alignment, our focus is on those mission critical programs that we have, that it is the essence of TBCC and how it serves the service region. Those are the ones that we have to offer, that we will always be able to offer. But we also look at programs like career starters, those that get you into that entry level, that foot in the door part to start your career, to where it could possibly, we could attach some other certificates or industry recognized credentials that could increase wage gains over time. And then we also have the ones that we call family sustaining. Those are those that once you complete the program, you go in and you're making at or above that median salary we're just talking about. And that gets you to the point where you're making enough money to sustain a family. The other component is our clearly defined programs. And we look at the programs that go directly into employment. So we graduate and they're expected to go straight into their job. But then we also have our transfer programs that we know, all right, you're coming to TBCC as a bridge of sorts to complete an associate degree with the intent to go on to a 4-year and complete a bachelor's degree. And those are critical as well. And then our upskilling programs, which are the short-term credentialing programs that maybe say somebody's already in the working field, all right, and is looking to bump a wage maybe 50 cents per hour. And so they can come here and what can we do in a shortened, condensed time frame to be able to provide you a skill set that directly aligns with the employer need so that you can serve the employer better. Again, that community aspect that we have. Priority 2 is something we call co-requisite education. And we've identified English and math. Why do we do that? Because we have English and math that's embedded in every single one of our degree programs. It's absolutely critical that we optimize success in these courses because it becomes what we call a gateway or a potential barrier, an academic barrier for students to proceed and succeed within their program pathway. And so co-requisite education simply implies that while you're taking your initial math class or your initial writing class, that we're offering supplemental opportunities aside from that class to be able to give students more time who may be struggling with the content to remediate, or what we call on-time remediation, to give them that instruction so that they can fill in the gaps that they may have and succeed in class. And so there's going to be an effort within this priority to ensure that we are comprehensive in our approach, that we have the professional development around to remediate the best we can and be as efficient as possible with the students so that we can help them succeed in their class. And then lastly, priority 3 is the development of a career center. So a physical space where students have a place to go to be able to make that connection. Rhoda and I were talking yesterday about graduation. And the opportunity that not only do we get to read the name, do we get to honor the student, do we get to read the credential, but how great would it be to the point that we read that credential and we also read their employment, or we read their 4-year transfer school that they're going to. And it's really that emphasis, the focus on what the community college is supposed to do. It's not an endpoint for the student, it's the career starting point, or it's the 4-year transfer point, or it's that upskill component that we have to them that's a part of their career and cycling them through. So there's a lot of elements there that we're really connecting the student into employment at that point and really completing that full cycle that we're doing. Are there any questions on really the work that the book that you have is really a playbook that, as Paul said, really gets into a lot of the concepts of a lot of the iterations that we've gone through with the Pathways project and how we bolster these and how we optimize everything we possibly can for the students so that they can achieve the career that they desire. Thank you for your time.
No. And I would point out too, that with a lot of this, that, you know, we here on campus, everybody's like, oh no, not another initiative for us to get engaged in, but we've really tried to ground this work in our strategic plan. I mean, this is work that supports our strategic plan, the goals and objectives that we have in our strategic plan. It is 100% student-centered, with the goal of creating, again, sustainability and program offering toward, you know, living wage careers for our students and community.
Paul, do I remember, did you say this is a 3-year program?
Three-year project, yeah.
Your project.
This will take us through, so as part of the project, the institute, the grant funds 6 different institutes, 2 a year. And we meet in different places. So we met last March, we had a meeting. We've got a meeting coming up at the end of this month in Louisville, which is where the institute is now, and then it moves around to meet the different colleges. And each one of those institutes focuses on something different, right? So this next institute is focusing on one of our primary objectives, more program alignment, living wage opportunities in our area. So we'll be looking at that piece. The institute after that, and they're 6 months apart, is focused on high school partnerships, K-12 partnerships, and we actually will be bringing, I'll bring a couple superintendents from Tillamook there. I hope to bring somebody from the Northwest Regional ESD with us. The institute after that focuses on transfer. So what is our transfer relationships? And then the 5th institute is around business and industry partners. So we'll bring some local business and industry partners with us to that one. Then the last one more is what's the next steps, kind of wrapping up kind of things. But the unique thing about the Rural Guided Pathways Project, to my knowledge, is one of the first that has one focused on the challenges of rural institutions, but really is intentful at bringing together your K-12 partners with your business and industry partners to create as much as we can that seamless pathway to a career. Did I say that? I don't know.
Very well said.
All right.
Are there benchmark measurements that tie to each institution? Those 5, how do they get measured?
We will develop them, right?
Okay.
So we have our 3 projects that Chris mentioned, and that's our next step right now. Our homework was that by October 17th, or some sense that right, the 17th, we had to develop our 3 priority projects. We've been working with Chris and internally to develop these projects. And then now that we've got our projects on the way, we're mapping out sort of what would be our work plans around that and what would be the metrics, the key performance indicators that we might want to measure as part of all of that piece. And it'll develop kind of as this goes along over the course of the institutes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just curious where the funding comes from for this.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. That's a Ascendium. Ascendium is an organization that is part of Great Lakes Borrowing, which is a student loan organization. So the interest and dividends that come off that goes into Ascendium, and then Ascendium uses those funds to be able to fund these grant projects. And so it's kind of bringing student loan interest back around in a good aspect to be able to provide opportunities to colleges.
Yeah, and specifically for Oregon, we have 4 colleges. I think, is that the most of any state?
I think so.
Yeah. So Oregon has 4 colleges that are participating, and that's funded in part by a grant from the Ford Family Foundation to support some of this work. That's Florida.
Romy, did you have some?
I kind of did, yeah. On the co-requisite English and math, I was curious about that because if a student comes in and let's say they were on an IEP when they were in K-12, they've had identified needs. I'm kind of wondering what the pathway is and what that looks like, or how is the process for identifying those students that need extra support? And then I'm also just thinking about how we get those initiatives out to let high school students that may have a disability know that there's a pathway for them at the college.
Yeah, so I think you actually have 2 questions.
I have a bunch. I'm
Yeah.
just.
Well, I think
trying to
there
narrow
are
it down.
two different things in that one that I picked up on anyhow. And Chris maybe can speak. So I see two. One of them is what's the relationship with an IEP at a high school and an accommodation that might be present at the college to support that student. We can tackle that one in a second. Maybe Rhoda can handle that one. But if you want to comment just briefly on sort of sequential developmental education versus co-requisite education, just in terms of getting students through college level gateway courses. So if you want to comment on that.
Absolutely. So developmental education, the component or set of courses that transpire before you enter your on-level math course, your on-level writing course, the course that's part of the degree program, the course that transfers to that 4-year, or again, completes that associate degree. So the developmental prerequisites, over time, and this went from probably the early 2000s through probably 2015, 2016, got so expansive that we were seeing students having to take anywhere from 3 to upwards of 9 credits of math and writing or English before they can even get to their on-level component. Financial aid paid for these courses. Problem was, if you're an associate degree program, typically about 60 credits, you're adding another 9 credits. Now you're at 69, almost 70 credits. If you fail a course, you're over 70 credits at this point. And so we started looking at the aggregate. We were finding that students were spending upwards of 1.5 years, almost 2 years, just in developmental education. And oh, by the way, the English and the math were prerequisites for your psych course, for your speech course, for your content area courses, those courses that you're actually coming to college to learn about, where your interest is. And so we're creating academic barriers and blocks for students to be able to proceed. And so we said, okay, well, if we have that, in theory, are we blocking them? What is the completion rate? For my school in particular, and I haven't heard any other school, and I know probably about 10 or 15 schools where we've run this metric, that when you're coming in at the lowest level of developmental education, and you got to take the maximum number of developmental credits, you stood a 7% chance of completing a degree. On top of that, we had the ones that were getting through that may have failed a course or two using up financial aid. So when they were finishing up their associate degree to transfer, they ran out of financial aid to be able to pay for their transfer, their bachelor degree. And so they use it up. So the idea was, okay, instead of that sequential model, can we take that and move it aside as less credits and make it a co-requisite instead of a prerequisite? And the idea was, instead of having to send the student through a full curriculum of stuff for which 80% they may have been sufficient at or proficient at, but 20% are a couple spots they may not have understood. Instead of sending them through all of that, let's make a co-requisite lower number of credits that's taught at the after or before the class that will remediate just the parts where the student is struggling at. And so the on-time remediation, to be able to really pinpoint and target the problem, is where the co-requisite model was really born out of. And the results that we've seen from it, we've been able to increase the on-level enrollment in our courses because they aren't going through that sequential dev ed sequence at that point. And we've seen course rates or course pass rates increase out of that as well. And of course, enrollment has increased.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
And Rhoda, do you want to comment on the IEP versus?
And then if students coming in and need accommodations, one of the things we're working on is connecting with the high school so we know about these students sooner, so we can have a plan sooner. Because what happens currently, sometimes we don't find out until halfway through a term that a student is looking for help, and it's sometimes too late to really get it in place to succeed in that term. But that would go along in addition to the co-requisite courses. You know, many students just need a little bit of time, a little bit of extra tutoring, maybe, you know, alternate space for the testing. Those are pretty common to be consistent. But especially if someone needs more in-depth aid, it's best if we have more time to help them set it up ahead of time. But that would always be in addition to the co-requisites and would be student specific.
But isn't it a different process, K-12 to college, on how they get accommodations?
Yes, and that's one of the things that is sometimes misunderstood, and IEP doesn't translate directly to college. However, we often use the IEP as the document to support getting accommodations in college because we don't have a lot of local agencies for the testing to come from. So we often use that as a document, but it may not translate exactly the same. Some things like we don't do less coursework. We don't take some of the things out. We don't have modified diplomas in college, but we can get you extra support to do the assignments that are in there.
And the big thing is that at the college level, the student has to declare the need.
Yes, student has to
Right.
request it,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
We do have, which is part of why we try bringing it up earlier as well. And the coaches, when we're getting new students in, they kind of bring up the topic, if you need extra supports, you can go down and visit, and in the courses, having it listed as an option, but yes, student has to request the accommodations.
I appreciate you being here and being our coach and thank you for this presentation. It's super interesting. As I was listening to you, I was reflecting on my path in community college, which is this program is the antidote to my path in community college.
Most students actually.
Oh, yeah, maybe so. I was in community college for most of the 80s. And and I just wanted an education. So I took everything I was interested in. I was thrilled to be there. I took all the humanities, all the social sciences, all the earth sciences, the whole series. But then I went to a different campus so I could take more classes. And that went on for many years until finally somebody finally, when I was looking through, I went to register looking for something I hadn't taken. I mean, literally. And somebody finally said, it's time for you to go. And I was terrified. That was the thing. I was afraid to do anything else. And I needed somebody to tell me that, I needed somebody to say, it's time for you to go. And it's so helpful, really. But the upshot of all this, so then I applied to a 4-year school. I got in. I didn't think I would, but I did. And I got in, I got a degree, but the upshot of all this is like I maybe 12 years of college and I have a BA. So I don't regret any of that education, but if I'd had some guidance, other things might have happened.
It's very, very well said, and that's the national landscape. And it's how can we still honor what students want to do, their ideas and the pathways that they want to go and career, but how can we, as the higher educational agency, we know more than the student. We know how to do higher education. We have to understand that students coming in don't know how to navigate these. And so it's trying to put the strategies in place, personnel in place, and the focus to be as efficient as possible on the student's behalf to help them through and get to that degree, credential, whatever it may be, as soon as possible and as cost efficient as possible. The thing that we focus on all the time, and this gets back to the transfer component, is transfer with completion, meaning that by the time the student transfers to the 4-year, they have completed their associate degree. The part that is most concerning about that is when the student goes through, they don't complete the associate degree, but they transfer anyways to the 4-year. Then they start taking out student loans if they haven't already started. And they don't complete the bachelor's degree. So now they're coming out with thousands of dollars in student loans, and the only degree they have to fall back on is their high school diploma. I'm not trying to, say bad things about high school diploma, but when we look at wage gains, that's going to get you the least wage gain out of that. And so a lot of people say, well, if you didn't go to college, that's the worst situation that you have. It's not. It's the student that's gone through completed years of college, but doesn't have a degree to put with that, coupled with student loans. And that's the part that keeps me up at night. And when we're trying to process and build strategy around that, we have to know more than the student to be able to help that student be as efficient as possible and help them so that they don't hurt themselves in the long run.
Is this idea of the co-requisite brand new, or have you been doing it for a while already?
Co-requisite education has been around since at least 2008. The Community College of Baltimore County started doing this with their English courses in actually probably the mid-2000s or so. And so that's kind of spread across and systems have taken that on in both English and math over the past 20 years.
And is there some data that shows you that that's working?
There's a wealth of data, absolutely, that shows the CCRC, who wrote the book, did some work with the Virginia Community College system when we went through our first iteration of math redesign. several years ago. And for that co-rec component, we saw enrollment increases in the on-level course, which you would naturally expect because now you've taken the developmental sequential courses out. So you're naturally going to have more people go directly into the on. And so then we saw higher rates of completion out of those courses for the co-requisite implementation out of it. And the big thing that we had to focus on that, we were losing over 50% of our dev ed population going through the sequential course. They were stopping out. They never even got to their on-level course. So that we could get them to that on-level course and open up those other courses, your psych courses, your speech courses, the content area courses, and be able to do that was a major retention factor as well that brought students back, which then ultimately helped with overall program completion.
There are a few states that have legislated this type of reform. And in those states where it's legislated and we have, the entire system's worth of data to go through, it is remarkable in terms of the number of students that make their way through college level work, math and writing faster. And in fact, there's conversation at our legislative level here in the state around co-requisite education. We have a work group together for co-requisite education, developmental education remediation. And I think that if individually we don't begin to start figuring this out and making progress, our legislators will probably demand something of us for that. Luckily, a few of them might make good decisions about education, but I worry about some of the other ones in terms of being able to legislate what we need to do. So it's on us, I think, to be able to begin having these conversations internally ahead of the game.
I think having the data will be really important. So you said 7%, only 7% made it through before this. So what's the number now?
The number now for us is in the low 30s. That's where we're at.
Okay, big progress.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice.
Other question for Chris or me about this topic? We'll keep you informed about this. I think this is something that will be transformative over the next few years. There's also discussions around developmental education in general and funding for developmental education from the state. So I think that, again, we're just trying to get out in front of that a little bit. So you'll hear more about that.
Which states have legislation concerning this?
The Virginia does. We have that implemented at full scale across both math and English. Maryland, North Carolina as well, Tennessee. But I know the East Coast states have been there. I'm not sure, has California done that with their?
California did do that. I don't think they mandated. So they basically said all students must be placed into college level math and writing. They do not mandate any co-requisite work, though the how to support students. So
Florida and I believe Texas as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right.
Appreciate you being here.
Hey, thank you. My pleasure.
Chris is on his way.
Get it back. Thank you so much, man. I'll see you.
Bye, Doc.
Yeah. All
Thanks.
right. Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Like that's a Virginia.
I didn't even know they were, our guidance council at the community college I went to, in fact, maybe there weren't. I never met one, never heard of one. I didn't know anything about it. I was very self-directed, I guess, but. It's kind of funny.
My wife she grew up in California and in the 70s and 80s in California when she was growing up, community colleges were free. And
Right.
so she did the wander around and find yourself random walk through the curriculum and had transcript from 4 different institutions in Southern California, day long, right? And finally decided it was time to maybe try to piece that together. So she was living in Eugene at the time, went to Lane Community College and said, I'd like to go to nursing school because she had been cleaning houses and kind of wanted. She goes to apply nurse, does this industry transcripts, and they got the words up. You have too many credits to get an associate's degree. You can't do it.
Oh, my God. So then what?
Well, so then luckily she's
stubborn. If you know her, you know.
She's married to you.
Yeah, well, yeah, and very tolerant to the story. She just kept petitioning somebody to get in, and somebody in the admissions office finally said, okay, leave me alone. But, yeah, so, yeah, crazy.
Never heard of that.
You could just the other thing is funding are limited now. I mean, back then you could do Pell Grants forever, then it was, and we've been limiting it, down to 9 years, now it's 6 years for a whole bachelor's degree. So the more time you spend wandering, what I tell some of the students is if you do ever want to come back and finish a degree, that money's gone now. You can't do that. There's nothing to support you anymore. You've used it all.
Yeah, school's so much more expensive, the lost opportunity too, right? And time and money there is really just not what it used to be. All right, so next on our list of things to get through here is I mean, that's wrong.
Really upset the stage there, Bob.
It's all day.
Well, then this is just gonna be an amazingly exciting respite from drudgery.
The next thing I'm so excited to present to you, I can't deal with it. I mean,
Nothing like data to wake you up.
nothing like a good bit of data.
Dave Bennett.
No, I'm just kidding. And sorry, I didn't mean that.
No, I know.
But
Came off great.
would like to have Aaron discuss, we talked a little bit about campus climate and employee engagement in our earlier session today. Aaron has put together a couple of slides and some information about some work we started doing a couple years ago about employee engagement, trying to get a measure of how engaged our employees were. As part of our annual kind of retreat, we'd like to have Aaron sort of talk about that sort of. This is a look in the rearview mirror about how campus climate is moving forward and our employees feel engaged. So
Yes.
Wonderful, Aaron McCullough. Cute.
So I'm gonna.
I'm trying. The wonderful ever.
No, it's great.
Ever present.
So I'm gonna stray away a little bit from the slides that you have in front of you, just because I realized what I had sent to Lori. I'd been playing a little fast and loose when I got the request for slides. And what I included there is just data from employees, but we asked some of these questions, the data that I'm gonna share with you, we also ask these questions of students. And so having student perspective and employee perspective for some of these questions is helpful as well. So you may want to, if you have eyes like mine, you may want to step up and move closer, or I'll talk a lot and explain to you what what's going on up on the screen. It'll probably make sense, but there's no shame in moving closer, is what I'm taking a while to say to you. So quickly, I'll be sharing data from employees, and we'll be focusing on employee data. We collected data from 51 employees, including faculty, staff, and 13 adjuncts. But I'm also going to include a little bit of information from students. We collected data from 67 students. And I'll share with Lori, and she can send out to you. I have a summary, not unlike the one that you have for employees, that summarizes all the data and the narrative feedback that we get from students as well. I've got that report for students, and I'll have Lori share that out with you as well. So you'll get that full report. I just didn't think of it, and it's moving quick and just not thinking. So we'll share that out with you. So we've got data from 67 students as well. And you may have questions about that, and you can reach out to me and we can answer those questions as well. So maybe this over here. So we ask a series of questions of our employees, and we'll look at these data for students as well. But you have this slide, I believe, in your packet. We ask, and these are some great questions that that Jason and I kind of developed, thinking about how do we capture some information from both employees and students about our experience of the campus as a campus, right? So we ask about whether the campus inspires you to learn and grow,
how we perceive TBCC in the community, whole series of questions. Before we dive too deep into these, for those of you who haven't seen this kind of chart before, there's a whole series of charts all structured in this way. And as you glance at them quickly, the one thing you're going to want to notice is they're all structured in the same way that they have this kind of tipping point, right? Which is tips at neutral, right? Neutral and negative. So anything tan or dark brown is neutral and negative. So you can real quickly look at the chart and kind of see everything blue is positive, strongly agree and agree. So we want, deeply weighted towards the blue. Anything tan or brown or dark brown is negative. And so you can see just quickly looking at every one of the charts, I believe bar charts that I show you is structured in the same way. So you kind of quickly get a sense of where we are with these. So really positive responses from employees. I think as we move to all 4 buildings being open, right? And a real sense of a campus, a real campus, college campus experience, I suspect, I think we all are hoping and feeling like we'll have an even more positive campus experience here. I experienced the TBCC campus as a supportive learning environment. I mean, these are all questions kind of about that campus experience, and we would hope that they would become even more positive, which is going to be hard to do because they're really positive to begin with. But the last 2 questions, and we're going to look at these for students as well, are about safety. I know how to respond appropriately in the case of a building evacuation. 93% of employees respond positively to that. That's real strong. And 100% of employees feel safe on campus. Can't get better than that. No. And same. Oh, and this is those last 2 safety questions, just charted, same questions charted over time. So you can see that those responses have kind of always been positive. We saw a little dip here, but responses have always been real positive. And student feedback, these are the same questions, but the order's flipped. I don't know, I should have led them, but I don't. I make mistakes, not always perfect, but focusing on, I feel safe when I'm on campus. 94% of students feel safe on campus, not 100%, but that's pretty darn good. 94% feeling safe on campus. I know how to appropriately respond in case of a building evacuation. Never do math quickly in front of people. What is that, 85%? Which is pretty good, right? See, I just had to do that in my mind. I see, no, it's not. You never want to do that. But then the other questions are those similar questions about students' experience of the campus as a campus, right? As a college environment. And you'll notice those are overwhelmingly positive, and we love to see that. And we can look at the trend for these questions as well. And that's a real strong trend. And when we think about what to do in case of an evacuation, that red line trending upward, which is certainly where we want it to be. And I think a reflection of the work that Jason and his team have been doing we've been having lockdown drills, we've been having fire drills. There's been work happening to increase those ratings. Questions? Ask a question so I can catch my breath. All right, cool.
Yeah, how many, I'm just curious, how many students did this?
67.
Okay, so fairly large. And there were only 5 full-time faculty at Urbist that did it for the faculty one. There were only 5 full-time faculty that did the employee.
No.
No?
I'm sorry, not right. 51.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
You know what? That can't be right. Is that right?
5 full-time staff.
You're probably right, yeah, yeah, we only have 11, so,
Only half of the faculty.
50% response rate, that's not bad,
Okay.
yeah, we'll take it, yeah. Sorry, I should just say no, I should have been kinder about that, that was maybe not my best response. All right. We ask students, I like these questions, so we'll call them generally kind of wayfinding. And they're about, students' experience, with the website, right? I find the website easy to navigate and to find information. When I have questions about programs, I know where to get information. You can just look, even from the back, whether you read the questions or not, you can see that, students' responses are overwhelmingly positive. The main building is easy to navigate to find what I need. Probably alter that question next year and ask about the buildings or the campus, right? As we expand and we have more than one building, the lobby is warm and welcoming. So we get kind of an overall sense of how positive students feel about the building and navigation and how to find information. We ask a series of questions about students about student services and their overall ratings. I usually warn Rhoda when I'm going to share this information, not because it's not positive, but just because that is a respectful thing to do when you're sharing someone's data. And I didn't, sorry about that, Rhoda, but there you go. Overwhelmingly positive students rate student services overwhelmingly positive. They find that their coaches are great in assisting them. Student services is able to answer their questions. You get the idea. We ask a series of questions of employees. Now, switching back to questions about employees, we ask a series of questions of employees about their experience with a college president. The college president is a strong and effective leader. These data are in the packet that you have. And those ratings are overwhelmingly strong. I'm not going to add those together in front of you, but you get the idea. Overwhelmingly strong. I received timely, accurate, and regular information from the president's office. Again, really strong ratings. College president's leadership aligns with the mission and vision. The leadership team at the college creates an inclusive environment. Not as strong,
But improved from last year.
but better from last year. I believe that's true.
It is, it was in the 50%.
It was 50%.
The two blues had.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
Right. So a little bit better. Yes, it's notably better. And we can look at 2 of those questions we've measured over time for a bit. The last 2 years are, is this right? The last 2 years are ratings of this one.
What, have we had your evaluation
I couldn't remember your name. Sorry, I don't think I had a decision. The day we had. Yeah.
I know the 1.9%. Strongly disagree.
Joke because we love, okay. We've asked these 2 questions, obviously, over an extended period of time. My time at the college, clearly, right? As long as I've been here, we've been asking these questions about timely, accurate, and regular information from the president's office. And the president is a strong, effective leader. These last 2 years have been the ratings reflective of Paul's leadership, and those ratings have been strong. And it was Paul's decision to continue to ask those questions. I would say that. So yeah, this is the juicy stuff and the interesting stuff. So we ask our employees, how likely is it that you would recommend TBCC as a workplace to your friends or colleagues? Hard to see that with and this question is a classic question you've probably responded to in rating business or organization, right? It's called the Net Promoter Score as a rated or it's used as a tool by a lot of different organizations. We use it here at TBCC. For those of you who are new, we use it as one of our mission fulfillment metrics. Those of you who are new are gonna learn all about mission fulfillment at our next board meeting, which is Monday.
Monday.
Oh, good times. Jesus, spend some time with it. So I've got a whole PowerPoint about mission fulfillment. It's gonna be good times. Yes, right? It's gonna be exciting.
There.
So we'll talk about mission fulfillment then, but this is one of our metrics, and all that means is we've measured this over time. So in response to this question, how likely is it that you will recommend TBCC? Folks respond on a scale from 0 to 10, correct? Yes, 0 to 10. And anybody who responds 9 or 10 is considered a promoter. Those that respond with an, oh shoot, remind me.
0 to 10.
Right. No, 7 or 8
7 and 8
is the middle one.
Yeah, it's passive.
7 or 8 is a passive. If you choose 7 or 8, you're considered passive, kind of neutral, right? And everybody else is considered a detractor, right? And so the net promoter score is the difference between the percentage of folks who are detractors and the percentage who are considered promoters, right? And so that difference is for us this year is 37%. So our net promoter score, the net between promoters and detractors, is 37%. Which is really, really good.
Was it last year, Erin?
Right? Took me a long time to get there.
Minus.
37%. Last year we were 4%. The year before we were negative 2%. Wow.
Yikes.
So let's just pause for a minute. Yes, Ronnie.
I was just thinking, I mean, really, if someone gave it a 6, that doesn't seem like it's a detractor. It seems like 4 would be a detractor. I mean, really, 5 or above is better than, a median. Maybe
I like the way she thinks.
Oh,
Yeah.
We both have the 5s.
Many of us think that.
Okay.
There is a lot of agreement with the observation that you make. Yes, yeah, I do not disagree. And the scoring scheme that I poorly described to you, is the common, approach that nationally is used to calculate the net promoter score. And so we don't mess with that, right?
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you. Why would a 7 not be positive? 7 feels pretty positive, right? 7 is passive. 7 is not surprising. But I get you. I feel you. I do not disagree, but we're sticking with the
Got it.
the known strategy, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, -2 to 37 in 2 years is dramatic, so
Yes.
bravo to all of you.
It is impressive. Yeah, it's pretty darn good. Yeah. We have some other improvement that we want to talk about as well. So. We also, and this may be easier, I'm not sure if this is easier to see here or to see on the handout that you have in the packet. It's also awfully pretty, I have to say. I'm really kind of impressed with what I put together here. So let me explain this chart, data visualization. So for the last 2 years, we've collected from employees responses to a series of questions, 6 broad domains of kind of culture, morale, experience here at the college, right? 6 domains, a whole series of questions within those domains. I don't know off the top of my head know how many questions there are. And so we've collected as employees' responses, right? Their average responses from 23-24, from the year 24 are in dark blue. Their responses from 25 are in this prettier blue, bright blue, are from 25, right? Turquoise blue is in 25, okay? And so when you look at the chart, what you'll see is the percentage of folks who responded positively in 24 is in dark blue. The percentage that responded positively in 25 is in the turquoise blue, or whatever blue you call that. Is in that turquoise blue, right? So the difference then is really, can be seen in the length of that line. So the longer the line, the greater the distance between these two lines is the amount of change between 24 and 25. Hopefully improvement between 24 and 25. You following me? Yeah. Anybody not following me? Yeah, okay. The other thing you should note is there are a couple of years where the scores in 2025 are slightly or somewhat lower than 2024. So you might see those years where, let's find them. Clear career path, right? You'll notice here, the scores in 2025 were slightly lower than 2024. Yeah, really?
Yeah.
It's a small difference though, probably not one that's really important. Those are big, those average scores or percentages are about the same.
Mostly around space and equipment,
Pardon me?
mostly around space and equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, people got a lot of feelings about space.
But that's important to understand. I mean,
Yes.
we are,
Well,
we are tripping over each other in this building,
Yeah.
right? And there are people that don't have adequate workspace. So I'm not surprised by that at all. Hopefully, some of that should get better with some spaces.
yeah. The other thing I would say is, as you look at the overall point chart, it might be difficult, looking at the kind of short title for each question. You might say, well, what does that mean, productive meetings or healthy workplace? You can, flip down to, this will move. If you want to know what the actual questions are, all of the actual questions are on the following charts, right? And you can get the actual percentage of folks who responded positively or negatively to each of those
Will we
questions.
send this out? I don't think they have this.
No, we don't.
So, no, we'll send this out.
No,
Oh, okay.
They just have a 2-page.
Oh, there's a 2-pager. Okay. Well, so if you have questions then about,
Well, it seems like the one that we're furthest behind on is conflict response. Can you describe a conflict response would be?
conflict response. What domain is that in?
That's at the very
You've
top.
got
Very
up
top.
on the-
Legislation launcher.
The college responds effectively to interpersonal conflict when it arises.
That's. this
Yeah.
one.
that one.
And so, right, the scores are low there. So they changed slightly, right? They increased from about 30% on average. About 30% of folks were positive there to about 40% of folks being positive, responding positively. But those were, and thank you, that's the other piece I didn't like kind of call your attention to is so we can look for change, but then we can look for overall how positive are people, right? Yeah. And and that's the lowest for sure.
I think there's a
You know,
couple pieces around that.
yes.
I think one of it is that, yeah, a lot of times there is, when you're talking about personnel matters, there is resolution, but it's not widely known what that resolution is, right? Because it's personnel matters and there's that piece to it. So I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is in some people's minds, the responses of the college may not be to the level necessary based upon what their perception of the impact was due to a particular conflict, that maybe we didn't respond quickly enough or strongly enough or something like that. And I think there's probably some truth to some of that too, right? Is that there's just this kind of misunderstanding or not a well understanding. But I think a good bit of it's really just around communicating out the lack of the ability sometimes to communicate out what the resolutions are, right? Because it's personnel matters. I do think though that the places where we can make improvement are around empowering people and training people and providing professional development around people being able to feel comfortable maybe resolving their own conflict, right? And those pieces. And I think that's where we could probably make some progress here is around providing conflict resolution tips and strategies and whatever for personnel when they're dealing with interpersonal relationships, right? So it's not all I don't think this all has to be a reflection on, the HR department, right? I think we have to train staff to be able to deal with their own conflict resolution as well. I think there's probably some opportunity for that.
Well, and from the human nature side of it, I would think in a conflict, when there's a decision, one person's gonna like it and one's not. This is never gonna be more than 50%. I mean, that's pretty simplified, but no one's ever gonna be completely happy.
I like the idea though, of there being a clear path to navigate that.
Maybe there could be more communication around, I hope you understand, but this is an HR issue and we cannot talk about it, right? Might help build some trust around it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think communicating out, having people understand, to your point, Romy, what is the process, right? What is the process if I have conflict, so it's well understood? And if part of that outcome is, you may not know the outcome necessarily, at least they understand there's a process, and if I take it this way, they can maybe at least have some trust in the process that will be carried
Or
forward.
that chain of command or that sort of, what do you do?
What's really kind of impressive about this chart though is that is the only thing that is less than 50% on.
Yeah.
So we make good progress on the few things that were less than 50%. Look at training.
Yeah, that's really good training going on.
Yeah, it was great to see the really notable increase in the percentage of folks who were satisfied with training opportunities. That's a pretty dramatic increase.
I remember that being a real negative.
It
in the
was
last year.
Yeah, it was. Well, and it's also really great, and I think that this probably links up with some of the other, certainly with the Net Promoter Score being as positive as it was. So many folks rating the college as a healthy workplace, trusting their coworkers, expressing personal job satisfaction at really high rates. All of that, I think, is certainly comes together, right? I really significant increase in the percentage of, or I should say significant increase if I didn't test it, the significance of it, sorry, nerd moment. Notable increase in the percentage of folks who feel like their benefits questions are supported, that they know where to get answers to those questions. So real important increases that we want to call out for ourselves. Other questions? That's all.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Erin.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Okay, or the head schedule and which is great. I mean, well, I don't like, be careful here. Open mouth, insert foot.
What do we have?
Where's my lighter here? Come on, y'all, people are, to help me. So I put a couple topics on here, really just more to allow time for maybe just some more open-ended sort of questions and answers with the board, without any particular presentations. I think that there are, especially with 4 new board members, might be opportunities to inform and talk about overall organizational structure, just sort of how we're organized as an institution. And then certainly with a lot of, I get a lot of questions routinely, and so does Britta, around issues both at the federal and the state level that impact the college, right? And I thought maybe being able to have a little, provide a little bit of space around that might be good. So I think if you don't mind, I'll talk a little bit about how the college is organized sort of structurally, for those of you that are new, and for those of you that aren't, certainly any questions you might have around that, talk about it as well. So
in the big picture, when we look at the sort of organization of the college, there's, and I'm not talking about governance, but we'll talk about that in a minute, just structural organization. We're organized in ways, although many of us sort of do work across aisles, but we have a certain part of the operation that's funded that provides support to the physical infrastructure and the human infrastructure of the college, right? So that's our administrative services sort of side of the house for the most part. We speak of it that way. Facilities, safety, security, IT, business office, advancement. Those are areas that support the operation, but don't interact with students directly, the employees that might be employed in those areas. Then the two large areas that we have that interact more directly with students are instruction, and that's everything that's centered around providing the classes and the teaching and the instructional support to students. And then we have student services, which is really providing everything support for students outside of direct instructional support. So that's financial aid, that's registration, that's student supports that we have, opportunity programs that we may have that support students outside of the classroom for the most part. So those are kind of our big, broad organizational structure there as far as the employees are concerned. If you look at our operational budget, actually, I can give you, I was going to give you one number, but I can give you exact numbers on what we look at when we look at what the college supports in those different areas. So if you look at our general fund expense in those different areas for instruction and support and student services, of course, it wouldn't be in color, so it's hard for me to tell apart. It's probably about 60%, 65%. I don't have it in color, of course, or I'd be able to tell you exactly all that. Then the rest of it is around plant operations and college support in terms of our expense. So most of the dollars that we spend go to directly supporting students and our mission that way and there. So that's kind of how we're organized in that sort of organizational structure sense. The college is we don't have unions, so we don't have a classified union and a faculty union. We're employees. You will often hear us talk about staff and faculty, right? Faculty, of course, would be the instructors in the classroom. We have 11 or 12 full-time faculty, and they teach probably 60% of our instruction is by full-time faculty, and the rest are by adjunct faculty. Many adjunct faculty, Michael's an adjunct faculty member, I've taught here before, community members that teach. There's always this kind of breakdown between like, well, why don't you have more full-time faculty? It's really twofold. One is simply about funding. We're not funded in a way that would allow us to have all of our instruction be by full-time faculty. But honestly, that's not a good strategy for us. If we're going to be nimble, we need to have the flexibility to bring on adjuncts and as needed, and also for the expertise in the career and technical education. So it's really just a model that has evolved that supports community colleges. And like I said, it would be great to have more full-time faculty. To some extent, that's financially related, why we don't. Others is just for practicality. Doesn't serve the students in the community best to have all of our resources tied up for full-time faculty. All of our other employees, for the most part, are divided into, we would either have them be exempt based upon their job description, where they're not bound by, the BOLI regulations around hourly employees. And then we have our non-exempt employees that are more hourly employees and are bound by sort of BOLI regulations there. And of our staff outside of faculty, we're about 50-50 in terms of number of employees we have that are non-exempt, right? That are managers and hourly, and then about 50% that are exempt, that are our supervisors and coordinators and more where you think of a manager and administrator in that fund there. And we have, you know, at any given point in time, probably, I think we have 50 to 55 staff, other than faculty, probably something like that. There. So that's our sort of organizational structure in terms of the way the college is organized, just in people. We're also organized in decision-making as well, which is in some ways unique to a college setting. I've spent, like I said, my whole adult life in it, so I'm very comfortable in that sort of what's called a shared governance model, where we have a participatory decision-making. And I would think that, you know, we have that structure here. As I mentioned, a lot of decision-making, if you will, takes place around this table with the leadership team, but it's always informed by employees through our governance sort of structures, right? College council is what we call that, and that's a representative group that has, probably 10 members or so that are from different parts of the college that participate in decision-making around policies and procedures and provide input on budget matters and things like that before they even get their way to the board. So that's kind of our organizational structure sort of in a nutshell. As we develop the budget, those of you that are new board members, we talk a lot about that kind of organizational and decision-making structure in the budget document, so that you can have that as a reference. But again, I'm more than happy to meet with board members individually or a small group to kind of do a sort of, like I said, a community college 101 discussion around structures and decision-making in a higher education institution, which is a little bit different than private business. So, do you have anything, Kylie, you want to add to that piece around sort of organizational structure?
No, we can provide org charts too as well. Want to see how it's laid out visually. But it's be broad.
Yeah.
That would be cool, with names, with the positions, that would be helpful.
And I can send two because it does get pretty big. So there's one with positions and then there's one with names.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we need that.
I did just email you all because Marilyn asked for LT's names and positions.
sure.
So I did email you. It was
you.
such a great idea. I shared it with everyone.
Yeah.
And could you send around the contact information for the new board members? To the board
Sure.
members?
Yes, as long as everybody's provided that, yep.
Yeah, please. I don't have everybody's.
Sure.
And does any leadership team members want to add to the kind of organizational structure kind of thing? Share.
I just wanted to point out that while it looks like we have a lot of executive leadership here, the interesting part about us, because we're so small, that our executive leadership does more hands-on, on the ground type work than you'll find in just about any other organization around. I mean, it's just, we do everything from here to here.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. We do work across the organizational chart here quite a bit. We've had a lot of discussions around this, around certainly recruitment and retention when we're hiring individuals, especially at more of a senior level. There's this expectation as you work your way through an org chart that the higher up the org chart you get in terms of position, you're spending less time on sort of operational details and more time in strategic thinking. And that might be true if you're at an organization that you know is 10,000 students and 1,000 employees, but when you're in an organization like this, you have to be comfortable whether you're the president, the VP, or whatever, that you're working across that org chart, you're supporting our frontline workers all the time. Rhoda's frequently helping out with financial aid and doing those things, Jason's an executive director, but I've seen him with boots on and a shovel in hand many times, right? Cheryl's helping people get an email started. So, I mean, it is a very common thing. And I think one that most of us are in these roles or that stay in these roles are because we like that, right? I mean, I came here specifically to get engaged in that one. So it's really, really unique. But it does make challenges when you're recruiting and retaining people because they have an expectation of something different. So we're always, how can we ask these questions and whatever that are make sure that folks understand what the job is really like when they come here.
Seems like that creates a better culture when you're not sequestered away in some office, but you're out on campus.
Yeah.
interacting.
Yeah, no, we all like it. It creates its challenges on the other end, being able to have the sort of bandwidth and time to do some strategic thinking, right, which is important also. But yeah, I think it does help from the culture point of view.
Just I'll throw in some kudos to Paul. He does a fantastic job of just walking through and saying hi to everyone, and
Kind thing.
it's true. That does wonders for the people that are on the kind of what you would consider a lower level position, but they, to have the president of the college come through and say hi and morning, that means the world to them. And so,
I enjoy my morning salutations in the college.
Nice.
Any questions about org structures, those kinds of things? I think we're in a pretty stable place. As I mentioned before, this morning, they are undergoing a process of sort of an HR analysis, sort of workload distribution sort of review. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some shifting, combining, pairing apart, and rearranging of the deck chairs to better support the operation moving forward. But from a leadership point of view, I think, we've got a good team together. The structure seems to be supporting us pretty well. So good about that. Okay. Questions about legislative issues? You want to tell us what's happening. We're all
Well,
crystal ball.
I'll say things are rapidly adapting. And OCCA, Oregon Community College Association, has a regularly scheduled federal kind of update with presidents and kind of people in like public information officer position, so that we can go through each thing that's come out and have it analyzed by Karen Smith, who's the attorney for OCCA, and just tell us like in layman terms what that actually means for us. A lot of the things that have rolled out haven't affected us as far as like we don't have Perkins and like, so some of larger institutions are grappling with a bit more. It's a bit overwhelming, but we're just taking it one day at a time and trying to be as communicative as possible to staff and faculty as far as when something is released, what that actually means and how that impacts TBCC. Things have slowed, well, our messaging has slowed down a little bit, but I think that we're doing an okay job. And like Paul has his campus conversations and things like that, which have been timely after large announcements have come out, which has provided an opportunity for folks to ask questions and provide a safe space for them to do so. So I think that's been helpful.
It's challenging because so much of it is really still up in the air. We hear a lot, there's a lot out there about the impacts on higher education, certainly because of the federal landscape, and without question, there has been a huge impact on higher education at the federal landscape from the standpoint of, I'll just speak, this might be some of this the world according to Paul, but certainly there's implications from a fiscal point of view for certain institutions, especially some of the larger four-year institutions. I believe the actions at the Department of Education and that are occurring are really designed to reshape higher education in a way that sort of in many ways has the federal government dictating the values of an institution. And those are things we grapple with that I think will have a trickle-down effect to us that we have to be aware of also. From a financial point of view, we are not as impacted directly as many other institutions. We only have the four-year institutions, in particular, the flagship institutions, they get a lot of their funding, research funding, right? That is important from the federal government. They've certainly been impacted by that. We have a single Department of Education grant that's in the 5th year, or we actually just started the 5th year of a 5-year grant. It was $450,000 a year. Eileen's the project director for that. We were up in the air about whether we would get our 5th year funding. There are at least 2 institutions across the state that got their grants terminated, Title III grants terminated. We thought ours would, but we did get our notification about 2 weeks ago that we will have the 5th year of our grant, so that's good. But again, there are other institutions that are impacted by that. The impact that we'll see, I think, is really one. I think there's two impacts we'll see. One, if there's an impact on students and operations, it'll be through financial aid, not the lack of funding, but the lack of processing of funding requests and just because of personnel, law and personnel in the Department of Education. So that'll impact our students and us maybe to some extent. The other piece, I think, is, although I think we're doing a pretty good job about this, but I'm just not sure how long the impact on our vulnerable populations that don't feel as welcome anymore, feel more targeted by the federal government. And then the sort of trickle down from that. Again, I'm talking about our students of color, which for us is predominantly our Hispanic Latinx community, but also our students in the LGBTQ community and whatever, again, just not feeling quite as wanting to put themselves out there, so to speak, right? So I worry about that sort of pushback in the shadows kind of piece that might happen as a result of this. And we're doing everything we can, like I said earlier, to create the messaging that those aren't our values and that we will do everything we can to promote safety for our community. Again, to the extent we can. I mean, if the federal authorities were to show up, we don't cooperate, obviously, but we don't get in the way either, because I can't have, we don't want our employees getting arrested for interfering with a federal action either. Hopefully we won't have to deal with that. Or when we do, we'll have a little bit more clear guidance. Most of the other things that you hear chatter out and about at the federal level is really chatter. I mean, we've been told by the Secretary of State here and our the legal authorities that we have here, our Attorney General, that is, if you felt you were in compliance with the laws prior to January 20th, you're still in compliance because the laws haven't changed. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to be aware and pay attention to that and make sure that we are compliant both with state and federal law. So that's that. Questions about that, issues?
No hot topics right now, though, other than the budget.
Yeah, for the TBCC team, what gets brought up frequently is who are the folks that should interact if ICE came to campus and what should be done. So pretty much every all staff meeting that we have, we talk about what that would be, and the people who are authorized to talk to them are Jason, Paul, and myself. We handed out cards at our fall conference that talked about, you direct them to us with our phone numbers. We are the only ones authorized to evaluate the warrant to make sure it's proper kind. And because that is such a stressful situation, I think the only thing we can continue to do is repetition of reminding folks of what they would need to do in that situation. And hopefully we don't have to experience that, but I'd say that is what gets brought up most.
Yeah, there's a lot of anxiety,
Yeah.
right? Because of the uncertainty around things. I haven't heard or felt a lot on campus since we've had a lot of activity over the past week or so about Portland and National Guard in Portland and things like that. While we're very different than Portland, obviously, the proximity to Portland, I think, and the fact that we are a heavily agriculture town does draw a little bit of attention to Tillamook County, perhaps, and might, but they haven't really I haven't really seen anything lately that would add any additional sort of cause other than, again, the uncertainty and the anxiety around the uncertainty piece. I don't know if any of the other teams heard anything or feeling anything, but
Have any of the colleges been visited by us?
I don't know the colleges have been.
Like Chemeketa.
Chemeketa and PCC, probably, yeah, I'm not directly, but I know that there have been, activities in and around those campuses for sure. But I don't know to the extent, what most of my colleagues are seeing around the state is, they're uncertain whether, like I mentioned this morning, it's uncertain whether they're seeing declines in their Latinx population, while they're seeing it on numbers. What they know is most people are declining to comment on what their race is, right? And so I think that makes it kind of hard to track and know. Most people are seeing overall enrollments increase, right? So overall enrollments are increasing across the board at all colleges. I think every single one still in this fall even. But I think the sort of uncertainty around people's willingness to identify or self-identify for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah, right.
Extrapolate that out a little.
So there was a request, federal request for records through law enforcement here recently, which resulted in a lawsuit by Marion County, and several counties signed on to a letter. Marion County was looking to sue the state and feds over confusion over what law whatever choice they made, whether or not to release these records, they were violating one law by releasing them, another law by not. And so there's like a conflict between the laws. And I'm wondering if the colleges had a conversation about that, if they start requesting federal records or demographic information on, Latinx students, or, has there been conversation about?
Oh, yes, and we've been very clear about this, and we reinforce this every meeting we're all together. There are 3 individuals that are allowed to speak on behalf of this college to federal authorities. There's myself. There's Britta, who's our health information officer, and Jason, who's our executive director of facilities and safety. That we have provided cards that people can hand out or whatever if they're ever confronted, that they're nervous, they don't have to say anything, they just hand a card, it's got our cell numbers on it, whatever, and we're the contacts. So there's that piece. The piece about records is we're a little bit different, right? I mean, so we're different as an educational institution because of Family Educational Rights Protection Act, right? And so FERPA, and we don't release records anyhow, right, under any circumstance. And the only way that we would release any student records is with a judicial assigned, executed judicial warrant. And that's only after one of the 3 of us have provided the clearance for that.
Do the students know that?
The students do know that.
Good.
Does that include directory information?
Directory information is a can, not have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Directory information is a choice. You don't have to provide directory information. You can choose.
So, which is a basic name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's still, you
Yeah.
can not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say we're in the, I mean, at least right now, we will provide the least amount of information that we would need to provide. And, I'm hoping it doesn't get too bad. We put signs up around the building that show students' rights. And we have it in both English and Spanish. We have had the only negative thing that we've had from anything happening here that I'm aware of was that at a sort of graduation time event, we had a family member of a student didn't like the fact that we had posted in the restroom above the stall the rights for students and brought the letter and threw it down on Jason's desk and said, how could you support this or whatever? And we just put it back up. But I mean, that's the only thing I'm aware of. We had an event, I mentioned our campus community. Now we didn't advertise it widely, don't get me wrong, but because we want the information to get out to the folks that that need to hear the information, not the folks that don't need to hear the information. And so we had a wonderful event here a couple of weeks ago that was well attended, and we didn't have any negative, that I'm aware of, again, any negative activity from that. I haven't seen anything on social media that was negative that I'm aware of.
Good, great.
It has prompted some changes for just planning of things
Yes.
that we do, as far as everything has a safety plan now. And so we have the contact folks that are the director level, that's department is doing that event, who's on site. We talk about, you know, how folks are identified, or, you know, all of that. So I think we're being as prudent as can.
I think that's a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah, which is good practice no matter what, right? But we did start instituting every event has to have, any event where there's community coming on campus has to have a safety plan associated with it. People that are sponsoring the event, who's the executive sponsor of the event, who can people call, who's on site during the event, what the expectations are for volunteers of the event in terms of how they interact with members from the public. Certainly if there was any kind of antagonistic interactions, whether they be verbal or physical, you know, at the end of the day, anything, we always, something we call 911. I mean, it's, we don't put hands on anybody. We don't have a security force in that regard, right? I mean, we just rely on city police to help us with that. But we haven't had we haven't had police on campus in a while, actually. So we've been pretty fortunate.
Good work.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I've got
It's a hot topic.
Yes. We try to be proactive. We believe in the ounce of prevention is better than a pound cure philosophy. I've got good folks that are engaged that work really hard, and so yeah, I get that we're in, I think, as good a place as we can be in right now, and I feel really good about the work that's been done and the work ahead too. So very lucky.
Thanks.
So, anything else?
We did, one of the ways that we can have visitors that are welcome is federally, they can come in and look at our I-9 records. So that is within 3 days of notice that they can come in. So we've done a very deep audit on our I-9 records and purged all the ones that need to be purged, to have those all separated. And also we signed up for E-Verify, which is a federal online program that you can use to federally confirm matches with passports and information, which is also another, hopefully, way that they'll be like, okay, they're legit, they're using E-Verify, and they can move on. So we're trying everything we can to, the one way they could come in and do an audit that everything would be legit, so. But
Thanks for being proactive.
anyway, it was scary.
Well, the only other thing we have on our agenda, if anybody wants to take a tour of the building, we'd be happy to take anybody.
We never did the tablets, diligence, email, and more.
I brought tablets for everyone.
Great. How about we do that now for folks that want to do the tablets, diligent, emails and more? So much.
Sure. Do we all stand?
Almost, is it okay with you, is it a good time to say, those of us who've been here for a while can excuse ourselves if we don't want to go on the door?
Absolutely, you may if you like.
Okay. All right. Well, I would like to, because I have other work I have to do, and I want to thank you. This was an excellent retreat. It was great. Yeah, thank you. Thank all the staff. Thanks our new board members and our existing board members. I thought it was a terrific day, and really, no. It's up to Marilyn's getting one.
Do I need to have one? Oh, I mean, it's not my agenda, I'm sorry. Come on.
Oh, yeah, it's not.
It's amazing how similar they are.
Okay.
Only doing two things.
Getting your mail.
Yeah,
Okay,
I do.
instead of email on it.
Do you want my phone number?
That's about it.
okay.
So-
No. Do you? Well, sure.
So basically essentially we're moving towards an electronic platform to manage board meetings.
And we just wanted to make sure that everybody had compatible technology to be able to do that. I think really if you're used to your own device that can get on the internet, whatever, that does it also, but we do have,
So we can use our own device.
I think so. I'm not the expert in this regard.
I guess I don't know how to get to the email.
Cheryl can help you with that. Probably can't. No problem.
It's just too much house.
En route. Who's getting route? Like Michael.
They're partially set up,
Lori does,
follow the prompts, you know, let's say.
diligence all web-based. Does that work? Can they access that from if they're comfortable using an iPad or whatever that works through that too?
Yeah, I just want to get a hold of.
And your email can be accessed, but Cheryl will have to help with that.
Just before a board meeting or sometime we drop in on the next week. Doesn't give us too much time.
Right.
We'll want to put diligent, you know, as a bookmark.
Yeah, they're diligent.
So it's
What am I supposed
easier
to
to get
do with
to.
that? What am I supposed to do? Have you signed up for diligent?
We'll get there.
We'll need to talk about that.
Yes.
Who's this? It's a little. That's probably that.
Very good.
Plug style charger.
If they don't come with anymore.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Sheriff. I didn't.
All right, well, I'll look at it. I mean, just bring it back on Monday.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't need another device.
So look, I was a diehard Mac user. Cheryl wouldn't let me use mine. You see what I have now.
Yeah, I'm a diehard man. We'll see how this goes. We'll see.
I can use it.
Why not? But can I donate my?
Students get to use it for that, it's their phone.
No, it's a Galaxy.
They signed up with something already. Yeah.
No, and I didn't need to see.
Magazine.
Right? I bought a magazine years ago.
Nobody wants to.
Harassed by 20 years later.
Don't hang out in my office, people leave me alone.
That's a fire over there right now.
Well, I would like to see the. I haven't been in it yet. You have? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Me either.
We got a lot. We threatened to do it, and drink a beer and we.
Sometimes.
But yeah, I haven't seen it. It's awesome.
Y'all go over?
Thank you. Yeah, I get. My brain had over it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Like, if I came out.
How you go? All day, but.
Pick up a pan.
Yep. So if you want to go over to see the facility, we'll meet downstairs, you know, where Jason's office is right at the bottom of the stairwell. We'll meet down there and you'll get to wear a nice, shiny bed and bed. Yeah.
Just boring.
The vest is really my favorite color. And
Is it a duck yellow?